Good afternoon, everyone. Hope everyone's having a warm and pleasant day. And I also hope that all of you have had lunch and are not sleepy, because today's sessions are going to be very interesting. Hello, I'm Dr. Shivani Trivedi, Pharmacovigilance Associate with GMERS Medical College, Gandhinagar, and we work under Pharmacovigilance Program of India, PVPI, Indian Pharmacopoeia Commission. I welcome you all on behalf of the entire Pharmacovigilance Unit, Pharmacology Department, GMERS Medical College, Gandhinagar. Now, as most of you must be aware, 17th to 23rd September is declared as the Pharmacovigilance Week by the National Coordination Centre Pharmacovigilance Program of India, with 17th September declared as the World Patient Safety Day. We are celebrating Second National Pharmacovigilance Week throughout the country this year. Now, we are fortunate enough to get this chance to arrange this seminar, and we are thankful to IPC for giving us this golden opportunity. Now, coming to the topic, this year's theme for celebration of Pharmacovigilance Week is encouraging reporting of adverse drug reaction by patients. Pharmacovigilance is no longer an unknown entity, through and hence to the constant efforts of Indian Pharmacopoeia Commissions, PVPI, AMC, and everyone working at the ground level. Thus, we felt it was a humble duty to arrange this awareness seminar so that we can aware and educate as many people and healthcare professionals as possible, so that everyone can be benefited by this. Now, I'll quickly go over the timeline for today's event. Firstly, we will start with a small pre-test. After that, Dr. Darshan Dave will take the sessions, and after that, a small and same post-test and feedback will be conducted. Now, I invite Dr. Jatin Pathak to guide you through the process of the pre-test. Over to you.
Good afternoon, dear participants. So, I welcome you all in this virtual seminar on Pharmacovigilance Awareness. We will surely be listening to Dr. Darshan Dave soon, but before starting the sessions, we have planned a pre-test. That is, a pre-test questionnaire which you will be answering, and we will be assessing your response. I want to emphasize one fact here, that this pre-test is not anywhere for your evaluation. It is ultimately for our benefit and our evaluation of this virtual seminar. We do not want to evaluate your knowledge by this pre-test questionnaire. So, in the chat box, I have pasted a link, that is a link of Google form. You might be seeing a blue line that is underlined, which starts with H. Okay, you have to click on that link and it will be direct you to the Google form, which have some questionnaires. All questionnaires are basic, and you have 5 minutes to fill up all the questions, and there are some options where you have to select one option, or you can select multiple as you want. But after you have to attend all the questions and select appropriate or the most appropriate answer you feel, and then after submitting all the answers, you will have to click the submit button of the Google form. So your response will be recorded thereafter. Okay, so I have already pasted the link in the chat box, live chat, and you have 5 minutes to fill up the pre-test questionnaire. We will be beginning now. Here I want to inform everyone that it is mandatory to fill up the pre-test questionnaire as for obtaining the certificate, which we will be giving after the seminar. If you are facing any problem for filling up this Google form, you can directly write into the chat box. I have already pasted the link. Please fill up the Google form of pre-test questionnaire. New listeners who are joining us right now, I have pasted a link of a Google form in the chat box. The Google form contains questionnaire for pre-test. Everyone must have to fill up the pre-test Google form, and then after we will be heading towards the academic sessions. we are waiting for the response of participants for the pre-test. The link has been posted in the chat box.
Everyone, it's a simple test which will not require much of your time. And also a gentle reminder that your identity will not be revealed during this test, because the sole purpose of this test is to check the impact of our seminar, not to evaluate you. We want to evaluate ourselves. So please, kindly, those who have joined late, kindly fill up the pre-test forms. Another thing that I would like to remind you all, that your continuous presence throughout this webinar is required for the process of certification. Also, pre-test and post-test is compulsory too. So kindly, we look forward to your active participation. Kindly do that. If any of you are having any doubts or questions or any problems regarding the link, kindly write those in chat box as well. We will try to help you as much as possible. Another thing that I would like to mention is, if any of you are having any doubts or queries during the session, kindly write them in the chat box. At the end, we will try to cover as many of them as possible. Now that all of you must be done with the pre-test, let's move forward with today's agenda. But before starting the event, I would like to share our sincere thanks to our Dean of GMERS, Dr. Shobna Gupta ma'am, who is also the patron of this seminar, for her constant support and continuous helping hand throughout the process. Well, she couldn't be here because of her busy schedule, but has forwarded her best of the wishes. Now, I would like to request Dr. Darshan Ravi to start the presentation. But let us start with a short introduction for Darshan sir. Dr. Darshan Dave is Professor and Head of Pharmacology Department, GMERS Medical College, Gandhinagar. With 15 years of academic experience and more than 20 publications, Sir is also actively involved in various institutional committees since the inception of this institute, few of which Medical Educational Unit, Central Research Committee, Institutional Ethics Committee, and of course, as the coordinator of our ADR Monitoring Centre. So, is an example of what true hard work and dedication looks like. Focusing on our AMC and activities, I would also like to mention that Sir's active involvement in adverse drug reaction reporting, sensitization and awareness programs of students, faculties and various healthcare professionals also fuels our efforts. And thanks to the collective efforts of our team, clinicians and all the healthcare professionals involved, we are now able to form a proper channel of communication, thanks to which we are able to identify and report of an average of about 70 adverse drug reactions per month. Thus, for our contribution, we also got appreciated by the National Coordination Centre Pharmacovigilance Program of India. Now, without consuming much of your precious time, I'll hand over the event to Dr. Darshan Dave. We're starting the first session on need of pharmacovigilance. Over to you, sir.
Hello, good afternoon all. So it is already 3:25. We are something running short of time, but as I have promised at the time of the announcement, this around 2-hour session will be very interesting and beneficial to you, and I will try to cover it as interactive as possible. Interactive in terms of you can write any of your queries or doubt during the session in the chat box. I will go through all, and I will go through this in between the sessions, and I will give you the answers at the end. There is a question answer session at the last also for 10 to 15 minutes, and most importantly in the last session we will have an hands-on training experience also. Okay, so we start with our first session. I would like to request Dr. Jatin to start the presentation. So the first session is need of the pharmacovigilance, and before going through the need of the pharmacovigilance, I would like to throw light on certain issues encountered with the drugs. Diclofenac, a very well-known old-aged drug, anti-inflammatory as well as analgesic properties, and it is used for various conditions, but just before few years it has been found that this diclofenac is also associated with cardiotoxicity. Then olmesartan, it is an angiotensin receptor blocker. You all know that angiotensin receptor blocker, they are widely used for various cardiac conditions, and presently it has been found to be associated with the enteropathy, which is characterized by severe diarrhea with significant weight loss. Zolpidem, this Z group of drugs, these drugs are introduced to minimize the symptoms of hangover, which is commonly seen with the benzodiazepines and other drug groups. Okay, but after the introduction of the zolpidem, these hangover symptoms found, and much more important than this is use of the zolpidem is associated with complex sleep behavior. It means that the sleep walking, sleep eating, sleep driving. okay, which is a very troublesome issue. Olanzapine, a very well known and widely used antipsychotic agent, it has been associated with sudden death. And as I told you, the angiotensin receptor blocker and AC inhibitors, they are the widely used drug. But if these two drugs, they are used in the combination, which was and which are used in combinations, but these combinations lead to increase in the risk of hyperkalemia, low blood pressure, renal failure, and so on. Okay. Ketoconazole, widely used antifungal agent, broad spectrum antifungal agent associated with the risk of hepatotoxicity. And you all know that type 2 diabetes, it is a very prevailing disease in Asian countries, and insulin resistance is the chief culprit for the type 2 diabetes, and for that the glitazones, they were introduced in the market. First agent is the troglitazone, and within a few years, not only in the Europe but from the other countries, this drug had been withdrawn because of the hepatotoxicity. Okay. Now after that, rosiglitazone and pioglitazone, they are introduced in the market, and these agents were found safe as far as the hepatotoxicity is concerned. And in the India, if we look at the status of this agent in the India, especially the pioglitazone, it was the pioneer and the essential component of the drug therapy of type 2 diabetes, whether alone or in the combination with other agents. But in 2007, meta-analysis of the controlled clinical trials shows that there is an increased risk of myocardial infarction and adverse cardiovascular events. And in July 2010, the Health Ministry of the India ordered one of this company to conduct the clinical trials, and these trials, they are suspended because of these reactions. And finally, initially the rosiglitazone and followed by pioglitazone, this has been withdrawn. Okay. Now the issue starts with this. Because of identify the adverse reaction, these drugs have been withdrawn first by the European agencies, then in May 21 by the US FDA, and there is another risk, that is bladder cancer, was noticed with the pioglitazone, and 8 cases. Remember, this is very careful. 8 cases of bladder cancer reported in India, and in India. Now what the step the Indian regulatory authority had taken? The banning of this drug in 2013. Okay, but the US FDA and EMA, they have given this notion that pioglitazone should not be used in the patients having active bladder cancer or history of it in past. But they have not banned the drug. Now, as I have told you that in India there are many type 2 diabetes cases, and pioglitazone at that time, pioglitazone was the pioneer drug. We can say that among the 100% taking oral anti-diabetic agents, more than 70 patients, they are on pioglitazone. Now suddenly banning of this drug, it is not possible. There is a big question on the physician side that how to find the replacement of these agents, because at that time the other agents, they are not available. Okay, and finally what the India has done, that this drug, I would use this term, reintroduction. This drug, it has been reintroduced in the market, but there is a change in the prescribing indication, and that is previously the pioglitazone was approved for type 2 diabetes either alone or in combination. Now the indication changed, and the indication is pioglitazone can be used as an oral anti-diabetic agent in the combination with sulfonylurea and biguanides only when these agents were failed to control the blood sugar. Okay. So now the question must arise in your mind that suddenly I have started with the example of the Diclofenac, with the example of the olanzapine, with the example of this glitazone. So what is the conclusion? Whether are these drugs were not safe enough, or are the adverse events reported with these drugs, whether this reaction they can't be find out during the clinical trial? So, or should we stop using this drug? Or how can we ensure that the further adverse drug reaction with this drug or other drugs will not occur? Dear friends, the conclusion is that even though the drugs before approval go through the different phases of the preclinical and clinical trials, but still continuous watch on the type, on the pattern of the adverse drug reaction is much more important than just to introduce the drug in the market, because many a times the pattern of the adverse reaction changes, many a times the new adverse reaction arises, and sooner we find it, better we can manage that. Okay, and so this continuous watch, that is known as a one should remain vigilant about the drug, and that's why there is a need of pharmacovigilance. You all must know the definition and the agendas of the pharmacovigilance, so I am not going into the detail, but pharmacovigilance encompasses the monitoring, assessment and providing information regarding the adverse drug reaction, and the final aim is to optimize the rational use of the drug. Okay. Now, which are the different major aims of the pharmacovigilance? First is the early detection. As I told you, sooner we find the problem, better we can manage it, better we can avoid it, better we can minimize it. So early detection of the unknown safety problems. Why it is unknown, that we will discuss later. Detection of increase in the frequency. Many times the adverse drug reaction is previously reported, but its frequency is very less or negligible, but now the frequency increases. The frequency can also increase in a particular age group, in a patient with a particular disease condition, in a patients with the using of already other drug therapy. So you can identify the risk factors, you can quantify the risk. Okay, and our main aim is to preventing the patient from being affected unnecessarily. Okay. So the final aim is obviously rational and safe use of medicine, in terms of we can get the maximum benefit of the medicine with minimizing the adverse effects. Okay. Now, what is the impact of this pharmacovigilance, or we can say that the adverse drug reaction on the healthcare, as far as the healthcare system is concerned? And you can be very surprised by knowing these figures, that adverse drug reactions are the 4th to 6th largest cause of the mortality. Yes, I am using this word mortality in the USA, and the incidence of the serious adverse drug reaction. Serious adverse drug reaction means if any adverse drug reaction leads to death or fatal or disability or prolong the hospitalization or congenital anomaly. These incidence of these serious adverse drug reaction is more than 6%. Okay, and not only this data, but the adverse drug reaction, their management in terms of the hospitalization, prolongation of the hospitalization, all these will lead to not only the significant increase in the morbidity and the mortality, but it increases the healthcare cost also. There is a tremendous burden on the healthcare economy. Now I have purposefully put, this is a very old article, okay, in a very well renowned journal, Pharmacotherapy 96, but at that time also the drug related hospital admission was more than 10%. Presently it is even more. And you can just go through the different figures like the hospitalization, therapeutic failure, adverse reaction, overdosage, but most important is, out of this, around 50% of these adverse drug reactions are avoidable. Okay, so we can definitely prevent 50% of this reaction and associated various burdens. Presently this figure is much more than this. Okay. This is another article published in the British Medical Journal, that ADR as a cause of the admission to the hospital. Analysis of 18,000 patients. Now what can be? We just go into the causes, just not discussing on the figures, but what are the possible causes of adverse drug reaction? Whether, as I have told you, that drug passes through, before entry into the market, the drug passes through the rigorous phases of preclinical trial as well as clinical trial. So whether the results of these trials are not correct, whether it is an incompetent clinical trial, obviously the answer is no. Whether there is a fault of the prescriber, means prescriber don't know, obviously this may happen but not always. It is in very few cases. Then which are the main causes? There are other possibilities. There are n number of the hidden facts of the drug. I am using this word very purposefully, that hidden facts of the drug. And why these hidden facts? That we will see in next few slides. Okay, first I want to go to this, that why I am using this word hidden facts. Because the clinical trials are not incompetent, but in clinical trials, if you go through the phase 0 to 1 to 3, 1 to 2 to 3, the number of the patients or the study participants involved are in thousands, not more than 10,000. If you make a total of all the phases. Then second thing is, generally if you just go through the clinical trials, these clinical trials, they are done in an adult population only. The trials are not done on the extremes of the age like pediatrics, geriatrics, pregnancy, lactation. While in the real life, these drugs are given to this population also. So we are not having that data, and that's why I am using the word hidden facts about the drug. Then shorter duration of the time. The exposure of the drug to the study participants in the clinical trial, it is not more than at the max 3 years. So what will happen if the drug is given to the patient for 4, 5 or even 10 years? Again, we don't know the answer. And most important thing is that if you just look at the prescription, you just do one thing, that after completion of this virtual seminar, you just find out any 100 prescriptions, and if you just look at the prescription, out of the 100 you will not find a single prescription in which there is a monotherapy prescription. So there is a now increased tendency of the polypharmacy. There are many factors responsible for it, and we are not going into the detail right now. But more the number of the drug prescribed, the chances of the drug-drug interactions are more. And in the clinical trials, we had not done, or no, the purpose of the clinical trial is not to identify or to evaluate the drug interaction profile. So this is another limitation. While in the real life the patient is having, even though the patient is taking antihypertensive, but additionally he or she is having diabetes, then other disease, and he or she is on different drugs. Yes, this is also very important that we have evaluated the drug, say for example antihypertensive, but we are not evaluating the drug in the patients having renal impairment or hepatic impairment. Okay, so because of all these points, we cannot totally rely on the data obtained from phase 0 to phase 3 clinical trial, and that's why there is an introduction of phase 4 clinical trial. But again I am telling that phase 4 clinical trial, but still the real life experience, the long period of the time, it is possible only and only if you are having a continuous watch on the drug throughout its lifespan. So what are the possible causes of the adverse drug reaction? Okay, one is the inappropriate use of the drug in regard to the patient condition. It means that inappropriate in terms of, suppose the patient is taking, or patient has been prescribed aminoglycoside, but the patient is already having a renal impairment. Then there is an inappropriate dosage regime. Dosage regime means either there is an inappropriate dose or route or frequency or duration. Not taken the history of drug reactions. There are many drugs which are found to be producing an allergic reaction. Okay. Not considered the possibility of the drug interaction. Inappropriate drug administration technique. There are certain drugs which are to be given after dilution and in the central line. Say for example the parenteral nutrition, potassium supplements. Okay, if you give it as a bolus or a very rapidly, chances of adverse drug reaction. Appropriate laboratory monitoring not conducted in case of warfarin and many other drugs. So these are the possible causes of adverse drug reaction. Okay, and if we just go to the database, the number of the reports, they are much more than it is in the millions, and each year it is definitely increasing. And if you just go through the reporting countries, we are not in the top 5 reporting countries. Okay. Now why specific focus on the India? The population is over 1.3 billion. There is a vast, no one can say that the ethnic variability is more in any other country than India. We are having different disease prevalence pattern in the different parts of the India, and the most complicating point is we are using or we are practicing a different systems of medicine, and we actually don't know, or no one has ever done a trial to evaluate the drug interaction between any Ayurvedic product and homeopathic product and this allopathic product. Okay, and over and above this, our pharmacovigilance system is not robust enough. But this, whenever I am speaking this slide right now, this doesn't mean that this system is not functioning at all. If we just look at the scenario in the past decade, our reporting, it has been significantly improved. Okay, but still we have a long way to go. And because of this pharmacovigilance, we have found out all these drugs. You can see, I am just telling you 1 or 2 examples, that rupecoxib and valdecoxib, these are the selective COX-2 inhibitors. These drugs were banned because of the hemorrhagic stroke and other cardiovascular adverse events. Rimonabant, anti-obesity agents banned because of the suicidal tendency. Nimesulide, it is contraindicated in the children less than 12 years of age, and many more. I am not going into the detail. And now my next point is, what is the ADR reporting system existing, or what is its history or journey in the India? If I go very quickly, in 1986 is the formal ADR monitoring system with only 12 regional centers, somewhat expanded in 97, joins with the WHO program. In 2005, National Pharmacovigilance program, which is a WHO funded. Okay, but this program didn't progress further, contrary to the expectation, and again stopped. Again it has restarted in the 2010 under the heading of Pharmacovigilance Program of India. Okay. Now what can be the possible causes of the failure? Okay. Because of the absence of adequate ADR monitoring, reporting and monitoring system at the various level. Because if you know, presently the agenda is not that's why I am not going into the detail, but there are different stakeholders of the pharmacovigilance. It is not only the responsibility of the doctors, it is a collective effort of the doctors as well as the nurses, the pharmacists, and even the patients. As the Dr. Sivani has said in the beginning, that in these years the theme is encouraging the patients to take part in the pharmacovigilance system. Okay. Lack of, yes, this is the second problem, that the lack of the reporting culture. That is also, like there are different reporting systems. If you just look at in the UK, there is a yellow card system. There are certain countries where there is a intensified hospital monitoring. And in India, we are following the spontaneous voluntary reporting. Okay. Previously, the Indian pharmaceutical companies, they have not well adapted the system of the pharmacovigilance. Okay, because of the paucity of the compulsion from the regulators, but now it is well established. And as I have told you, this pharmacovigilance program has started in the 2010, and with the aim of this program, the pharmacovigilance program of the India, is to collect, collate and analyze the data and to arrive at an inference to recommend the regulatory intervention, besides communicating the risk to the healthcare professional and to the public. Here I will not go into the much more detail, but if you look at the organogram of this program, at the periphery there are ADR monitoring system. Okay, and the government of India, it has notified that all the tertiary care teaching hospital, they must have the ADR monitoring center, is known as AMC, and which is usually run by the pharmacology department. And in GMERS Medical College, Gandhinagar, also we are having an approved ADR monitoring center. This ADR monitoring center, they can report the adverse drug reaction directly to the IPC or over the ADR monitoring center. There is a regional center, then there is a zonal center, and finally there is a national coordinating center, which is at the Indian Pharmacopoeia Commission, IPC, Ghaziabad. And what they will do, these all we will discuss in subsequent slides, but these national center, they will collect, they will make a final proofing of the details given to them, and then they submit the data to the global center, that is Uppsala Monitoring Center in the Sweden. Okay. So what this Uppsala Monitoring Center will do, they are having a huge database, international database of suspected adverse drug reaction, and this database is known as a Vigilance. I have forgotten to tell that the software through which we are reporting the adverse drug reaction, individual case safety reports, that is known as a Vigiflow, and the database That is known as a VG base. Now, even many healthcare professionals, even my colleagues, they were previously asked me that the one thing is pharmacovigilance. Sorry for the interruption. That one thing is pharmacovigilance or the safety of the drug, and the another thing is reporting the adverse drug reaction. Now, what is the link between these two? And the link is this very, here our role comes, we have to explain to all the stakeholders there. More we report, more we can analyze, more we come to some inference, and then we can generate certain regulatory guidelines, and even before the regulatory guidelines we can generate a signal. Okay, signal, that the literal meaning of this word signal is some red sign, that there must be some intentional watch, active watch on the behavioral pattern of the drug. Okay, now what is the signal? WHO definition of the signal, you just go through very carefully word by word. It is a reported information on the possible, this word is very important, possible causal association between adverse event. Here purposefully we have not used the word adverse drug reaction. There is an adverse event. It may be due to drug, it may not be due to drug. So a possible causal relationship between an adverse event and a drug, this relationship was previously unknown, or if it is known but it is incompletely documented. Okay, that is known as a signal. Now the question arises that if a single report of unknown, unidentified adverse event is there due to drug, whether you will generate the signal. Now it will depend on the reported adverse drug reaction, quality of that reporting, the therapeutic status of that drug, and many more factors. But usually more than a single report is required to generate a signal depending upon the seriousness of the event and the quality of the information. What is a signal? A signal is a hypothesis. Together with, you are having certain data, you are having certain arguments, and it is important to note that a signal is not only uncertain. Okay, it is not just showing that uncertainty, but it is also preliminary in nature. So more watch, more active vigilance on the part of the behavior of the pattern is required. Okay, and there are different signals. Here I am just mentioning the signals they are generated within this, I think not more than 2 years. Peptidostat, the hepatic failure, many drugs they have found to cause in the Stevens-Johnson syndrome, even ibuprofen, which is considered to be a very safe, but now the fixed drug eruption is there, losartan, muscle spasm, and many more drugs. These are the different signals generated by the WHO. So in short, what is the goal of this pharmacovigilance program? Is to ensure that the benefits of the use of the medicine outweigh the risk and thus safeguard the health of the Indian population. And the broader objectives are to foster the culture by different ways, by sensitization of the different stakeholders, and ultimately to develop a sustained, viable, broad-based ADR monitoring program in the India. And so this is the broad objective, but the specific objective is to create our own database, to create the awareness, to optimize the safety, and to create the infrastructure for sustainable reporting, quality reporting of adverse drug reaction. Okay, and these are the different functions of the stakeholders: collection of the ADR reports, check its completeness, so quality of the reporting, reporting to the PVPI, training, sensitization, and feedback. So this is the suspected adverse drug reaction reporting form. So we are following this pattern of spontaneous adverse drug reaction reporting. So we have to fill up this form. Obviously you can't find anything more than black and red lines, but we will discuss this in the next session in detail, how to fill up this form. Okay, but final aim is, again I am telling that the more earlier you find the signals, the adverse drug reaction, whether it is from the clinical trial or from the post-marketing studies or from the real life experience, it will helpful not only for a particular individual patient but for a society as well as the pharmaceutical companies, and it will significantly curtail the healthcare cost, where we can't afford, even if you consider in the developed countries it is not possible, so it is very difficult in the developing countries, improve the outcome, reduction in the morbidity and mortality. So if I want to come to a conclusion of this presentation is, the drug will come to the market after the limited experience or the limited facts about the adverse reaction profile of the drug. We don't know many of the things, but still we have to use this, and after or during this procedure of using the drugs, we have to find out the possible adverse reactions and then we have to manage that. So I would like to correlate it with the quote by the Robert Frost, is that courage is the human virtue that counts most. Courage to act on the limited knowledge and insufficient evidence of, here in this case of the drug, we are having a limited knowledge and insufficient evidence of the limited data regarding the nature of the drug, but that's all any of us have. Thank you very much, and I know that this is a very hectic schedule, so I would like to request Dr. Jatin to show one video which is prepared by the WHO, then we will proceed further. Thank you.
Sooner or later, everyone needs medication. So before you give it, and before you take it, know your medication. Check that you are using the right medication the right way. Ask your healthcare professional if you're unsure. Ask your patient if they understand. Everyone has a role to play in medication safety. Know, check, ask. Join us in achieving medication without harm.
Okay, I am playing this video again.
Sooner or later, everyone needs medication. So before you give it, and before you take it, know your medication. Check that you are using the right medication the right way. Ask your healthcare professional if you're unsure. Ask your patient if they understand. Everyone has a role to play in medication safety. Know, check, ask. Join us in achieving medication without harm.
So all of you have definitely seen this video and you would like it more interesting. I want to tell a few things about this video. It is prepared by the World Health Organization on the eve of the Global Patient Safety Week, and this Global Patient Safety Week, it is celebrated from 12th to 17th September each year, and 17th September it is celebrated as a World Patient Safety Day. And this year the theme is, each year there are different themes, and this year the theme is the medication safety, and this is celebrated with as you can nicely see in this video, that the awareness by the healthcare professional as well as by the patients, and usually the WHO has always given some color coding for each year, and this year the color code is orange, and that's why we have also used this orange in this presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir, for such an enlightening session. Now, we shall move forward to our next session and very important session for today, which is components of ADR reporting form and guidance of reporting to PVPI. Over to you, sir.
Okay, so as you have seen in the second last slide, the ADR reporting form which is developed by the Indian Pharmacopoeia Commission, National Coordinating Centre, and as I have told you that different countries follow the different patterns of the ADR reporting, and we are following the spontaneous voluntary reporting through this ADR reporting form. And first we will discuss how to fill the data in this form, then we will discuss other practical and logistic issues, and finally how to report to the PVPI. Okay, so this is the front side of this form, and this is the back side of this form. Now obviously it is not possible for you to go through this form, so I just specify different components. Okay, now there are four important, obviously there is an administrative details in which you only have to note down the IPD or OPD or registration or case number, nothing else you have to write. Then there are four different segments. Okay, and these segments are, one is the information related to the patient, then information related to the reaction, then information related to the drug, and then information related to the reporter. We will discuss each these one by one. First is the patient related information. Now this is the version 1.4 that is presently we are using, and in this first clause it has been added that whether it is an initial case or it is a follow-up case followed by the patient information. Now here one should be very cautious that our aim is not to find out that these patients, say for example the Darshan Dave is having these adverse reaction, and that's why we have no need to disclose the identity. So identity of the patient must not be exposed at the any level, and that's why right from the beginning we are just mentioning the patient initials, then age, then date of birth, gender and weight. Now what is the requirement of this age? That's later on. Say for example, in case of nimesulide, because of the reporting of the hepatic damage with the nimesulide, and when these cases were analyzed, then it has been found that all the 12 fatal cases of hepatic injury, all these were reported in the pediatric age group, and that's why the use of the nimesulide is banned in the pediatric age group. Second is the weight. Here that the importance is whether the dose that is used for that weight, whether it is appropriate or higher. The gender, we want to identify that whether these particular adverse drug reaction is more commonly seen in this age group, or in this gender or in this gender. Okay. So that's why the patient information is essential, because once you know what is the importance of this data, then you will find it more useful, and you are obviously more positive and in a stimulatory mode to fill all these details. Then second is the detail about the suspected adverse drug reaction. When the reaction has started, when the reaction has stopped. Now suppose the reaction continues, then you just note down continue. Then describe the event, what exactly occurs. Say for example, the redness or itching on the forearm, where is the site, where is the location, what is the size, what is the associated clinical feature. All these details you have to note down in this 7th point. Then yes, this is a very important, suspected medications. Third part, obviously you can't see, so I have broken down this. Name of the drug, brand name and generic name. Then there are different columns: manufacturer, batch number, expiry date, dose and route. Now many a times I have encountered this query by many of my colleagues that they don't know about all this detail, but just fill out as many details you know. Okay. Then the frequency, then when this treatment started, when the treatment stopped, and for which indication the drug was given. And if you cannot do the causality assessment at your level, it is obviously fine, because the causality assessment is to be done at the level of the ADR Monitoring Centre. So you don't have to bother about this. Okay. Then next is about, yes, there are certain terminologies. Say for example, the D challenge. What is D challenge? That suppose any adverse reaction occurs when you stop the drug, and if the adverse reaction abated, then it is known as a positive D challenge test. So what is the action taken? That is the next, whether the drug is withdrawn or dose increase. Obviously generally when if any adverse reaction occurs, then the drug is withdrawn, dose is increased. Now you think that, is it possible that in any case the dose increased? Yes. There are many drugs in which there are certain adverse drug reactions bound to occur, but it is not damaging, or it is a very transitionally adverse reactions, and it gradually fade away over a period of the time, and so the dose increased, dose reduced, dose not changed, not applicable in terms of a single use, and you don't know. And re-challenge. So once you stop the drug, and if the reaction stopped, then it is a positive D-challenge, you again reintroduce. And if again the reaction reappears, then it is known as a positive re-challenge test. So if yes, if no, effect unknown, and if it is reintroduced, what is the dose? Okay. Then there is another 11th number of the column in which you have to write which are the other concomitant medical products. And now here which drugs you have to write. Suppose in a prescription there are 7 drugs. Out of these 7 drugs, you find that these are the 2 or 3 drugs which can be responsible for the adverse drug reaction. These you have to write in a causative drug, and the remaining drugs you have to write in this 11th point. This is the concomitant medical products. Okay. Same thing, dose, route, frequency. when the therapy started, when therapy stopped, and indication. Any additional information. Here this is a specific space for if you are having any other data that you feel that this may be helpful for come to some conclusion, but you are not having a specific place for this, then you can write this. Relevant laboratory tests, okay, any medication history like allergies, race, pregnancy, habits and all that. And yes, this is very important, as I told you, whether the reaction is serious, yes or no. If yes, out of these 6 points, which is that, whether the reaction led to death, or it is life-threatening, or it led to hospitalization, or congenital anomaly, or disability. Fine? This you have to specify, or any other medically important point. And 15 number points, what is the outcome? Whether the adverse drug reaction has already recovered, or this adverse drug reaction is gradually recovering, or no change, it is not recovered, or it is fatal, or it is recovered but with some sequelae, or you don't know. So outcome is also important. And lastly, so we have seen the 3 details. One is the patient related detail, second is the adverse drug reaction related details, third is the drug related details, and fourth is the reporter details, where all the details about the reporter. Now the culture is definitely changing, but before 2, 3 or 4, 5 years, majority of the healthcare professionals, they felt that if I am reporting this, I am found to be the later on the responsible for this ADR. But if you are reporting, it doesn't mean that you are responsible for this ADR, because I think many of you have learned the pharmacology, and there is a one proven fact that any drug is found to be helpful only and only, or effective only and only if it produces some adverse drug reaction. Okay, so there is a no legal claim on the side of the prescriber is there, so no need to hesitate about the reporting. Okay, now as I told you that once after the filling, how you can fill this adverse drug reaction, certain question arises in your mind. Who can report? How to report? Where to report? Within which timeline you have to report? What will happen to this reporting form after you submit it? Where to submit this form? All the question arises in your mind. And who can report? So before 5 or 7 years when I prepared this slide, then the answer is only the doctors. But because of the reporting is very less, because of the many factors, then the paramedical staffs, nurses, then pharmacists, then other healthcare paramedical staffs, they are enrolled in this. But still the reporting is very less. And then I have not mentioned in this slide, but even the patients can also report, but the reporting form for the patient is different. Here I have not shown it, but you can definitely download it from the CDSCO website, and this patient reporting form is available in the different vernacular languages. And where to report, and the answer is to the nearest ADR Monitoring Centre, and generally the medical college runs the ADR Monitoring Centre, and the pharmacology department is generally heading this. Okay, you can also directly report. I will write in the chat box the email on which you have to report this ADR reporting form, and there is a one toll-free number for this. There is also I am writing in the chat box, and that is, I am just writing in the chat box. Now what? Yes, this is the most important point. Many of my colleagues already told that what happens to this submitted information, but for this you have to wait for the next slide. And does this reporting really makes change? Yes, definitely. You have seen in the previous presentation that rupecoxib, valdecoxib, nimesulide, many of these drugs are banned. Many of these drugs, the indication has been changed. And the biggest question is what to report. It means that suppose the adverse drug reaction is already known and already reported, still you have to report yes, because many a times the pattern of the reaction changes, the frequency of the reaction changes, the severity of the reaction changes, and that's why you have to report everything, whether it is a minor or insignificant or well known, or even you know the causal association, not known, but still you just report. Okay, if you are in a doubt, it is better to report the adverse drug reaction. Okay. Now what happens to the submitted information? Now first and foremost, the information provided in this form is handled in the strict confidence. Okay. Then next is causality assessment. We will discuss this in a next very important session. Causality assessment is carried out at the ADR Monitoring Centre by using WHO UMC scale, that is WHO Uppsala Monitoring Centre scale. Then the analyzed form are forwarded to the National Coordinating Centre through the software that is known as the Vigiflow. And finally the data is analyzed, again scrutinized, again cleaned, and then forwarded to the Global Pharmacovigilance database managed by the Global Center at Uppsala, Sweden. Okay. Now, if we just go back to our previous slide, that what is the further function? Obviously, the WHO will generate a signal, okay, and then the healthcare professional remain more vigilant about the adverse reaction. But at the national level also, okay, there are certain signals generated by the national coordinating centers. Then, based on the further findings of these signals or the safety alerts, all the data given with the supportive evidence to our national regulatory agency, that is Central Drug Standard Control Organization, and it is the duty of the CDSO. They will do either a change in the labeling or change in the indication, or very rarely the banning of the drug. And then this information is to be submitted to the different stakeholders of the drug usage. Okay. But throughout this phase, again I am telling you, the confidentiality remains always there, and the patient's identity is held in strict confidence and protected to the fullest extent. Okay. And the very important point is, submission of a report does not constitute an admission that medical personnel or manufacturer or the product caused or contributed to the reaction. So nothing to be worried about this confidentiality. And if you just go through the form, it has been specifically mentioned with a red box, and I have just highlighted the same thing in this. There is a no legal implication is there. Okay. So we all have to work together for make this adverse drug reaction reporting culture, and in a true sense we make this pharmacovigilance program of the India a great success. Thank you. Now again you just go through a different video, but here again you have to look it in a very vigilant way, because I will ask you a certain question after this video and you have to give the answer in the chat box. Okay.
What just happened in there?
No, please, hear me out. I was just trying to help.
Wait, I don't want to hear excuses.
No, please. I mean, I did not mean anything.
All I can say is this is unacceptable.
No, please, hear me out. I mean,
Sarah, this is very irresponsible of you. We were in there. We saw what happened.
I was just trying my best, please.
Sarah, I said enough. Come see us in the office later, please, okay?
Yes, please do.
What's going on here? Why is his respiratory rate so low?
Oh, well, he's not my patient. I was just trying to help.
Okay, let's see if we can figure out what's going on. He's breathing awfully slow.
We've got fentanyl hanging. Did you order a new drug this morning?
No, I was about to put in phenylephrine, but...
This is phenylephrine. That's fentanyl. Why did you give him fentanyl instead of phenylephrine?
Sorry, I got distracted. I don't know what happened.
Never mind. You can go. Get out, please. Out. Please, call a code. We're gonna need to intubate him.
Can I get RT in ICU 717, please?
Hi, what seems to be the problem?
The drip is running out.
Okay, let me check it. Okay. Hi, can we get a bag of phenylephrine here in room 717, please?
Hello.
Hi.
How you doing?
Good.
So this is the phenylephrine you requested?
Hey, look at him. There's something wrong.
Okay.
He must be in pain. Just do
Okay,
something.
just stand back, calm down. Okay, I will help him.
Give him something. He's in pain.
Okay,
Something's in pain.
let me just put this, okay? Then I will help him, okay? Don't worry. Sometimes you do things with the best of intentions, but somehow things still go wrong.
When things go wrong, how we deal with them makes all the difference. Let us come together and commit to building a culture where we support each other and communicate openly and respectfully without jumping to conclusions. A culture where we hold ourselves and each other accountable for our individual and collective behavior. A culture where we can all speak up and use a structured process to learn from our mistakes and keep improving. Where we speak the same language, work together as a team, and involve everyone to be part of the solution. Let us take care of each other so we can take care of others. Let us come together and build a culture that is just and fair.
Okay, so we have watched 2 videos as of now. Now, regarding this second video, I would like to ask some questions to the participants that what exactly happened during the whole process. What was the problem of if there was a problem of drug or a patient disease, what was the actual problem where the situation started to be worsening? Okay, participants can write their answers in the chat box. I can see. Now, there was stated that we need to change the culture. Okay. from which culture to which culture we need to change. There was a sort of meeting in the another culture, and in first culture there was something scolding like things happening over there. So what the culture has to be like? First there is something shouting it to the nurse, and then explaining and discussing about the matters in detail, and then reaching to a proper solution. Okay. What was the culture? So participants can write their answers in the chat box. Yes, one answer we got like look-alike medicines. Yes. So we need to be utmost careful while dealing with the look-alike medicines. Mutually supportive culture. Okay, we need to move on from some culture to mutually supportive and culture which is just and fair. Okay, we are not going to blame anyone. We are not going to impose the cause of any event on the participant, but we need to move on to the mutually supportive, just and fair culture. Okay.
So anyone else you want to add something in the commentary of this video? Okay, this is a very good, Dr. Ramchandra Bhatt has reported it is a problem because of a look-alike or sound-alike medications. Here you can see, if you just go through, can we simultaneously, Dr. Jatin, can we run the video and we can comment on that? Okay. We just quickly run the video and we simultaneously speak also. Just quickly go ahead, make a sound signal.
Come see us in the office later, please, okay?
Yes, please do.
Just go further.
About to put in kind of a friend, but
No, just back side. Still back, still.
What's going on here? Why is this
Actually, I want to go for 20 minutes earlier.
and I was just trying to help.
Oh,
Up to story.
Can I get RT in ICU 717, please?
Just still go ahead. Just still go ahead. Yes. So here you can see that the bell suddenly rang, and then that's why one of the healthcare professionals come with this is a drug for some another patient, and by mistake here the pint of the phenylephrine. Here what exactly she has to do? She has to change the pint of the phenylephrine. Okay, and that's why the pint of the phenylephrine is there. But because of the apprehension of the patient's relative, instead of the phenylephrine, she had taken, you can see that she had taken the pint of the fentanyl, and because the labeling and all these, and the spelling P starts with the, start with the, and here you can see the fentanyl pint.
Sometimes
Yes.
you do things.
And because of all the mishap occurs.
But somehow
So
things
This
could
is,
go wrong.
you can suppose it. So this is the fine noise. Just make it as such. That there is the issue of look-alike or sound-alike medicines, and in that, right from the labeling, right from the color, right from the storage, right from the dispensing, and right from all the different SOPs, one has to take care to prevent such type of adverse reactions. The same problem can occur at a different level also. At the level of the dispensing pharmacy also. Doctor has written a particular drug and the pharmacist gave some another drug, and that's why now in India there is a rule that write a drug not in the generic, in the capital letters only. Okay, thank you all. We just quickly complete this video.
When things go wrong, how we deal with them makes all the difference. Let us come together and commit to building a culture where we support each other and communicate openly and respectfully without jumping to conclusions. A culture where we hold ourselves and each other accountable for our individual and collective behavior. A culture where we can all speak up and use a structured process to learn from our mistakes and keep improving. Where we speak the same language, work together as a team, and involve everyone to be part of the solution. Let us take care of each other so we can take care of others. Let us come together and build a culture that is just and fair.
Thank you very much, sir, for explaining the critical information in such easy words. It was very informative yet simple. Now, hopefully none of you are getting bored, as it is. We all know it's after lunch hour, but please. Anyway, now let's move forward to the last session of today, which is Causality Assessment of Suspected Adverse Drug Reactions. I would like to request everyone to pay close attention to this session, as it is one of the most important topics of pharmacovigilance, and also it will serve you as the hands-on training for the same. Over to you, sir.
So the last part is causality assessment of suspected adverse drug reaction, and the learning objectives of these sessions are different terminologies that is going to be encountered in this presentation. Then what is the need of the causality assessment, what are the different advantages and limitations of the causality assessment, methods of causality assessment, and application of the method. Right? So these are the terminologies: adverse event, adverse drug reaction, causality assessment, D-challenge and re-challenge. We have already discussed about the D-challenge and re-challenge. So we start with the first one. What is causality assessment? So causality assessment means you want to find, because if you just look at the form carefully, on the title it has been written that suspected adverse drug reaction reporting form. It means that while treating a disease with any drug, if any adverse event occur, it can be due to drug, it can be due to that particular disease, or it can be due to some other disease also. Okay, so it is not necessarily due to drug, and we want to find out that what is the relationship, what is the strength of the relationship between the adverse event and the drug. Okay, so it is a probability scale rather than a definite conclusion, because even you all know that the life is not in a black and white, there are different sets, and same is over here. Okay, so if any adverse events occurs, it may be due to drug, it may not be due to drug. If it is due to drug, then it is known as an adverse drug reaction, and if it is not due to drug, then it is known as an adverse incidence. So in a mathematics terms, the adverse drug reaction out of the many reasons of the adverse events, one of the reason is the adverse drug reaction. So all the adverse drug reactions are adverse events, but the reverse is not correct. Okay. Then why this causality assessment? Because again we are just suspecting, but we have to prove it. Either it is due to drug or it is not due to drug. But again as we have seen that generally even after doing the causality assessments, you will find a strength of the association. You will not get the answer in yes or no. You may get, but in a very few cases. Okay, so causality assessment is needed because it is a suspected. You have to prove it. Okay. So why it is required? Because the reactions are rarely specific for the drug. Then obviously the diagnostic test, say for example for the cholera there is X diagnostic test, typhoid is different, hepatitis is different, but for the drugs the diagnostic tests are usually absent. Okay, and many a times the re-challenge is not justified. Okay. And as I told you, very few adverse reactions, they fall in a one extremity, that is definitely due to drug, certain, or in the another side, unlikely. Majority of the adverse reactions remain in between. Okay. So what are the advantages of the causality assessment? It decreases the disagreement between the assessors. Obviously whenever you assess anything, there are some subjective viewpoints. This can be definitely minimized. Okay. Then it can classify the likelihood of the relationship. It can mark the individual case reports. It will definitely helpful as the educational purpose is there or for the scientific evaluation. But there are many disadvantages also. Disadvantages, it means there are still many things which can be, or still many questions which remain unanswered even after you have done the causality assessment, and that is accurate quantitative measurement of relationship likelihood. It's not possible. Distinguish valid from invalid case. Prove the connection. It's not possible always. Quantify the contribution between the drug and the development of the adverse event, and to change this uncertainty, to remove the level of the suspected, that is not always possible. Okay, now the four types of the basic data are required to do the causality assessment: drug, relationship, reaction, and the other. One is the pharmacology of the drug. It means that the previous knowledge of the drug responsible for the adverse reactions. Association of the time, association of the place. Then medical plausibility, what is the characteristic of the particular adverse event, and which are the other possible causes. if you can exclude all the other possible causes, then obviously with the rule of the exclusion, you can claim that this reaction is due to the drug. Okay. Most important is the temporal relationship. It means that the relationship between the onset of the adverse drug reaction or the occurrence of the adverse drug reaction and the intake of the drug. Okay. There are certain examples. Say for example, the anaphylaxis immediately occurs after taking the drug within a few minutes, while in the cancer it requires a significant exposure. Okay, then so this is characteristics of the timings. Then plausibility, it implies the knowledge of the, as I told you, that if you can exclude the other possible causes, you come to a conclusion that this is due to this drug. Events with a higher probability of drug causality. There are many adverse reactions like anaphylaxis or agranulocytosis where the chances of occurrence due to drug is much more higher than due to other causes. And which are these other causes? The disease that is being treated, it may be the exacerbation of the disease also, it may be the clinical feature of that disease also, it may be due to the simultaneous development of some other medical condition, it may be due to the other patient habits like smoking or other family history, and it may be a coincidental finding. Okay. And which are the different data required to do the causality assessment? And these are the data related to the drug, the data related to the event, the de-challenge and the re-challenge data, and the history of the patient. These are very important. Data related to the drug, data related to the event, data related to the de-challenge, re-challenge, and history of the patient. Okay, now there are two types of, if you can see in the next slides, there are different published methods. I am not going into the detail, but there are the two basic differences. In the one, there is a very objective or algorithmic method in which there are series of questions and you have to give the answer of the question, and each answer give weightage or the score, and that score, final score, will define the causality category. And the classical example is the Naranjo's method, while there is another method, that is a probabilistic method, and the classical example is WHO, Uppsala Monitoring Centre method. Here there is a set of explicitly defined causality categories. We will not go into the detail. Here you can see in the Naranjo's scale, I am not going into the detail of this scale. Okay, because more widely used method is the WHO UMC, and I would like to explain you this by an example, and because of the shortage of the time, but here on the top you can see that the three possible categories of the answer, yes, no, or you don't know, and the different scores are given to each question, and there are different questions, and out of these 10 questions, the possible score ranges from -4 to 13, and if the score is more than or equal to 9, it belongs to the definite. Between 5 to 9, it is probable. Between 1 to 4, it is possible, and less than 0, obviously doubtful. Okay, yes. Now I will go into the detail WHO UMC causality categories. Now don't be disheartened or confused with the word jargon of these different categories, like in the certain, I just read out in this case, later on I will not read out, event or laboratory test abnormality with plausible time relationship to the drug intake. You just focus on this red highlighted word, cannot be explained by disease or other drug, respond to withdrawal plausible, and event definitive pharmacologically. Okay, and re-challenge satisfactory if necessary. Just I am giving you one example. A 45 years old male, you have to tell me, all of you please be attentive, because this is the practical aspect. Okay? If you are having any question, write in the chat box. Dr. Jatin is looking after of the chat box. A 45 years old male diagnosed as having tuberculosis and prescribed first line anti-tubercular agents. After 1 month, patient had developed the symptoms of the hepatitis. SGPT, SGOT level raises. All viral markers were negative, so the viral hepatitis ruled out. Physician suspected that it is a case of drug-induced hepatitis, and all the possible drugs responsible or known to cause the hepatotoxicity, isoniazid, rifampicin and pyrazinamide, these drugs were stopped. Patient started improvement. SGPT level came to normal after 1 month. Physician had started reintroducing the drugs one by one with the interval of 1 week. First, physician has introduced isoniazid and again checked the liver marker after 1 week. It is normal. Then after 1 week introduced rifampicin. Again continued for 1 more week along with the isoniazid. Liver marker repeated after 1 more week. Again liver marker normal, and then pyrazinamide reintroduced. After 1 week the SGPT level raised. Okay, so pyrazinamide was stopped and it has been replaced with one of the second line anti-tubercular agent. Okay, so now it is obviously clear that pyrazinamide is the culprit, but if you just go through the criteria level designed by the WHO UMC, so temporal relationship is there. Answer is yes. Pharmacologically, yes, pyrazinamide is a known causative agent for causing hepatitis. Alternative explanation, so the viral markers were negative and other drugs were also ruled out, so no alternative explanation. D challenge, the drug was stopped and the reaction abated, so D challenge is positive. Re challenge, again the drug is reintroduced and the adverse event in terms of the elevated SGPT level, again it is there. So temporal relationship positive, pharmacologically correct, alternative explanation, no alternative explanation, D challenge, re challenge positive, then the criteria is certain. It is definitely due to pyrazinamide. Okay. So there are certain other examples of the definitive. As far as the time relationship is concerned, when you give the intravenous injection and within few minutes if there is a development of the anaphylaxis, so it is a classical example of definitive ADR. Spatial relationship, injection site reaction, where the reaction occurs at the site. So when the relationship with the site, again it is definitive. And the specific laboratory test, if you find the anti-drug antibodies, obviously it is due to the drug. So these are the other criteria for the definitive. Now I am giving you, now I will not enter into as I told you, the WHO criteria, exactly the written, that you can go through the literature also. I will give you an example, then we will set you under the headings of different categories. We will find the answer of each of this question and then we come to the conclusion. A 65 years old male diagnosed as having benign hypertrophy of prostate, and for that he was prescribed tablet prazosin, which is an alpha blocker, and tablet finasteride, which is a 5-alpha reductase inhibitor, for the treatment of benign hypertrophy of prostate. On the next visit, patient complains that, sir, I am having improvement in the symptom, but I am having I am developing the episodes of dizziness, giddiness, fainting after taking these medications. When the physician replaced prazosin with tamsulosin, but physician continued the tablet finasteride as it is. On the next visit, again after the 15 days, patient felt better and advised to continue the tamsulosin and finasteride. Now we again, these criteria are with you in case of a certain. Now we compare in the temporal relationship. A known case of benign prostatic hypertrophy, prescribed the prazosin, which is the alpha blocker, and developed the hypotension. So time relationship is there. Yes. Prazosin is an alpha blocker which causes peripheral vasodilatation, and because of this, prazosin is a known agent for this postural hypotension, while it is not seen with the finasteride. There is no other alternative explanation in this case. D challenge, yes, when the prazosin has been stopped, the symptoms abated, so there is a positive D challenge, and re-challenge is not required in this case. So here in the WHO UMC category, it comes under the heading of probable. Then next is a 45 years old male diagnosed as having tuberculosis and prescribed first line anti-tubercular agents. After 1 month, it is some sort of first case also, but with some modification. After 1 month, the patient had developed symptoms of hepatitis, SGPT significantly high, and physician suspected this case as a drug-induced hepatitis. Isoniazid, rifampicin and pyrazinamide were stopped. You can write in the chat box that how this case different from the first case. I am just waiting for 30 seconds. How this case different from the first case. Here if you just look at carefully, the viral markers were not done, so that has not been ruled out. And again the another thing is that the reintroduction of the drug was not done. So if we just look at the criteria, temporal relationship, obviously it occurs after the administration of the drug. Yes. Pharmacologically, yes, all these three drugs, isoniazid, rifampicin and pyrazinamide, it is responsible for these adverse drug reaction. Alternative explanation, yes, it is due to out of these three, any one drug is responsible, and yes, the viral hepatitis can also be there because the viral markers have not done. D challenge and re-challenge is not required, so it means that data is not there. Rather than this NR, the data is not there, and as the data is not there, then it is fall under the category of possible. Okay, then the same first case, I am just repeating the same first case. Okay, now for the same first case, pyrazinamide is definitively responsible for this adverse drug reaction. But if you look at the other angle, say for example, in the case of the isoniazid or the rifampicin, temporal relationship is a question mark, pharmacology is a question mark, alternative explanation, you are having alternative explanation. Okay, because the isoniazid and rifampicin is not responsible, pyrazinamide is responsible. Okay, so then it falls under the category of unlikely. So in case of, if you just look at the same case, pyrazinamide is definitely responsible, while isoniazid and rifampicin, both these drugs are not or unlikely for this ADR. Okay, then next case, a 25 years old female attended the dermatology OPD with severe itching and generalized maculopapular rash all over the body, and on detailed history, she was taking some over-the-counter medications for common cold since last 3 days, but she didn't bring medications with her. Dermatologist asked her to stop all these over-the-counter medications and prescribed antihistaminics and bring them on the next week after 3 days. Okay, so here it comes under the category of the unclassified. The reason is that some of the data that is required for the causal association is missing. And which are these data? That the details of the OTC drugs, which over-the-counter drugs that the patient has taken, whether any of that drug is responsible for this ADR, that we don't know. Okay. And that's why it falls under the category of unclassified. You cannot classify it because of lacking of some data. Now, with the same case, a 25 years old female attended the dermatology OPD with severe itching and maculopapular rash all over the body. Said history of taking this drug, didn't bring the medication, stop the drug and bring them the next week. Next visit, but on the next visit patient improved, but she did not bring the medication and she replied that, sorry madam, I cannot bring this medication in the future because that drugs were misplaced. So even the possibility of finding out the causal association is not there in the future, and that's why you cannot classify these, and that's why it will fall under the category of unclassifiable. Okay, so again we will not go into this word jargon, but simply if you just look at this, in case of the definitive or the certain adverse event, obviously the adverse event, it is obviously there in each and every category, but in definitive the temporal relationship is plausible, very likely, there is no other explanation, and D challenge is there. In probable, the temporal relationship is reasonable, other relationship is unlikely, and D challenge is reasonable. In the possible, there can be other explanation. This is the biggest difference. In unlikely, temporal relationship is not probable, okay, but at the same time it is not impossible, and other explanation is more likely. Conditional, as I told you, other data is required, and unclassifiable, data is not obtainable, and even if you find the data, that is contradictory, so you cannot classify it at all in the future also. So the key features for the certain is positive rechallenge you can take the snapshot of it. Very important. Probable positive D challenge. Possible other explanations are there. Unlikely. Several factors strongly indicate that the event is not a reaction. Conditional. Can't assess with the information available. And unclassifiable, that the data are inadequate and it will not be available in the future also. Okay. So now there is a time for the exercise. I am giving you the 1 minute. I am expecting some answers from you. Okay. Dizziness half an hour after ingestion of an oral antihypertensive drug. Patient is not taking any concomitant drugs. Dizziness stops on stopping the drug and restarts when taken again. What is the causal association? Yes, I am getting answer from Viswa Trivedi, that is certain. Smith Makwana, certain. Anyone else? Shreyans, certain. So, no other answer? Everyone. Swati Nayak, certain. Kars Rathod, certain. Everyone goes with the certain. Now can anyone write in the chat box why you all go with the certain? Anyone write why it goes with the certain? Temporal relationship is there. Yes. Then it pharmacology. Yes. Because the antihypertensive agent, so chances of hypotension will be there. Then other explanation, no, not finding from this data. Then D challenge, dizziness stops on stopping the drug. Okay. Then again it restarts when they take the drug, so D challenge is also positive. So all this goes in the favor of certain. So very good. Viswa has written the re challenge and D challenge is there. Very good. Fine. Yes. Then next one. Cancer of the lung diagnosed after 3 doses of an antibiotic taken for the respiratory tract infection in a 60-year-old male with a habit of smoking 10 packs of cigarettes per day since last 15 years. So 60-year-old male developed respiratory tract infection. For that he was prescribed antimicrobial agent and he developed, after taking 3 doses, developed carcinoma of the lung, and he is a known case of having habit of cigarette smoking. Just take your time for 1 minute and then write your answer. We are waiting for your answer. There are 6 categories: certain, probable, possible, unlikely, unclassified, and unclassifiable. Definitive. Minu Picholia, it's written definitive. Okay, can you justify your answer? Anyone else? Certain or definitive, same, they are just synonyms. So we are getting answer of almost all. Definitive, then possible, then Viswa Trivedi, unlikely, okay. Then Shreyans, unclassifiable. Then likely, there is no such criteria. Oh, okay, you want to write unlikely, okay. Possible, then unlikely. Both challenge and re-challenge, okay. So now I'm just to give you the answer that here I have to specify the antimicrobial, but just taking a 3 dose of antimicrobial and development of the carcinoma of the lung. So temporal relationship, it is just a coincidental finding, okay. Then with an antimicrobial agent, any pharmacology of any antimicrobial agent, it will not explain it is due to the drug. Then alternative explanation. Here, yes, the alternative explanation is there because cigarette smoking is a definitive causative factor for the development of the carcinoma of the lung, and there is no data about the D-challenge and the re-challenge. So as if you just look at my previous slide, what is the key finding of the unlikely is that the several factors indicate strongly that the event is not a reaction, and second, the other possible reasons are that, and that's why it will come under the heading of unlikely. Okay, so these are the different ways. If you just apply the Naranjo scale again, it will come with the same answer. Okay, so this is all about. Again, we require, I am just quickly tell out that we require 3 or 4 types of data, that timely, temporal relationship, then the pharmacology of the drug, then the other explanation, then the D-challenge, then the re-challenge, that will help you to come to the causal association. Okay, so this is all about the causality assessment scale. Now I would like to request Dr. Jatin to again share a link of post-test. Again, I am repeating that these pre-test and post-test, these are not here to evaluate your knowledge, but the purpose is to evaluate this workshop, and your identity is also not revealed. So please fill up this post-test form. The link, it has been already placed in the chat box. Okay, so fill the post-test. We are just waiting. Take your own time. Pre-test and post-test submission as well as the feedback is essential for getting the certificate. we are giving you the 5 to 7 minutes for this post test.